What if a revolution wasn't fought with swords, but with thread? Today, we're diving into the incredible story of how a single accidental discovery in a dyer's vat didn't just change fashion, it completely upended an entire social order. This is the story of how the invention of a perfect black dye led to a silent, bloodless coup, creating the blueprint for the modern suit and the power it still holds today.
I mean, what an opening line, right? It just drops you right into this world that feels both magical and, well, deeply oppressive. Choking on color. That tells you everything you need to know. This isn't about beauty or art. This is about control. This is a city that is suffocating under the weight of weaponized brightness.
So, here's our roadmap for today. First, we're going to step into this world that's literally ruled by color. Then, we'll see the accidental discovery that changed everything. From there, we'll watch how that color was forged into a new kind of armor, leading to an incredible showdown of shadow versus light. And finally, we'll unpack the legacy of that fight, the one that's probably hanging in your closet right now.
Okay, let's set the scene. Our story begins in Viridia, a city where your place in the world wasn't just shown by what you wore, it was legally enforced by it.
This is the absolute pillar of their society, the Edict of Pigment. And this wasn't just a fashion trend, it was the law. Only the powerful were allowed to wear vibrant colors. Power was a performance, a constant, blinding spectacle designed to keep everyone else too dazzled to even think straight. And you can see that divide so clearly right here. On one side, you've got the aristocracy, the peacocks, basically, in their screaming yellows and violent crimsons, a loud optical assault. And on the other side, the merchant class, the people who actually built the city, the ones who make it run. And they're legally forced into the colors of mud and stone. They weren't just overlooked, they were designed to be invisible.
History often turns on these small, almost random moments. And in Viridia, that exact moment happened in a steaming vat in some back alley. All thanks to a very frustrated craftsman named Elias Thorne.
Now, Elias Thorne wasn't trying to start a revolution. Not at first, anyway. He was just a master of his craft. And he was completely obsessed with the technical problem. He hated the dull grays his class was forced to wear, calling it the color of submission. And he was determined to create its opposite, a true, defiant black, something that the science of his time said was pretty much impossible.
And this is what's so fascinating about his motive. He tells his assistant he's not just mixing chemicals. He's trying to distill authority. Think about that. He wanted to capture the feeling of power, of gravity, of seriousness, and somehow bottle it up in a dye.
So how does he do it? Well, like so many breakthroughs, it happens by pure accident. After years and years of getting it wrong, he tries a new ingredient, an old recipe for ink. But then, a carriage accident happens outside. There's a commotion. He gets distracted and leaves a piece of silk in the vat for hours longer than you should have. When he finally pulls it out, he's expecting the same old faded charcoal. But instead, he finds something the world has never ever seen before.
This is the absolute key. This new color, which they started calling Viridian black, didn't just look dark. It seemed to drink the light right out of the room. It was like a physical void, a little piece of night you could actually hold. This wasn't just a new color, it was a whole new physical phenomenon.
But look, a revolutionary dye is pretty useless if it's just sitting in a vat. Elias Thorne knew that this new color didn't just need to be worn, it needed a form, a design that could turn it into a weapon.
And here is Thorne's genius insight. He realized the noble's power was built on visual chaos, all the puffy sleeves, bright patterns, clashing colors. So to fight them, you couldn't just wear a different color. You had to reject their entire visual language. You had to create silence in a room that was screaming with noise.
So he goes to the head of the lace guild, a matriarch named Genevieve, and together they engineer a new kind of uniform. They strip away everything soft, everything decorative. The fabric is cut into a slim, efficient shape. The lace is no longer floral and frilly. It's sharp, geometric, and starched so stiff it's less like decoration and more like armor.
And Genevieve, she gets it instantly. She sees his vision perfectly. This isn't about making new clothes. As she says, it's about forging a weapon. It's about taking this group of overlooked merchants and turning them into a unified, sharp, and frankly intimidating force.
Okay, so the weapon is forged. The theory is ready. Now it's time to put it into practice. The black coats, as people start calling them, begin to deploy their new look, and the psychological effect is immediate
and for their rivals, completely devastating. Just look at this first encounter. A banker, Thomas Vane, walks in to meet the king's treasurer. The treasurer is dressed up in this puffy, bright pumpkin orange outfit, and Vane, he's just a pillar of black. All of a sudden, the aristocrat looks childish, almost silly, and the merchant looks like the only adult in the room. The entire power dynamic flips before they even start talking about the loan. So, of course, the king and his court start to panic. They decide to set a trap, a grand masquerade, the most colorful event in the history of the city. The plan is simple: humiliate the merchants, make their simple black suits look drab, poor, and totally out of place next to the overwhelming finery of the nobility. But the trap backfires. Oh, it backfires spectacularly. When the 50 members of the Merchant Guild walk in, all in Viridian black, they don't look poor. They look like a unified architectural force. In this sea of chaotic, shimmering color, this solid block of pure void becomes the only thing anyone can look at. They don't blend in. They completely dominate the room. And then comes the checkmate. Elias Thorne himself approaches the king. He doesn't bow like a subject. He just gives a slight nod, like an equal. And then he brings up business. He reminds the king, in front of everybody, who really holds the power now. The people who control the money. The age of the Peacocks was officially over.
But the story doesn't end when the party's over. The effects of that single night ripple outwards, not just through the city of Viridia, but through history itself, leading directly to the close we see in boardrooms all over the world today. The victory was total, and it was swift. I mean, look at this timeline. Within a single year, even the young nobles are ditching their silks for the merchant's cut. Within 5 years, the old laws about color are just gone. They're totally irrelevant. Viridian black is no longer the color of defiance. It is now the undisputed global uniform of power.
And here's the real takeaway. The story of Viridia, while it is fictional, is a direct allegory for a real historical shift. It represents a period that historians called the Great Male Renunciation, where the aristocratic, flamboyant style was replaced by the sober, dark suit of the new professional and capitalist classes. I think this final reflection from Elias just sums it up so beautifully. It wasn't about destroying beauty or killing color. It was a transfer of power. The entire visual language of authority was rewritten, taken from the aristocrats of blood and given to the new aristocrats of capital.
And that really leaves us with a final question to chew on. If the black suit was the uniform for the age of capital, what's the uniform for our age? Is it the Silicon Valley hoodie and jeans? Is it the influencer's carefully curated personal brand? It really makes you wonder, what subtle shifts in what we're all wearing right now are signaling the next great transfer of power?
Please like and subscribe.